Inca.
Proceed with load.
Roger.
Our colleagues at NASA Edge were able to catch up with the TDRSM project manager, Dave Littman, to talk about the purpose of this mission. Let's hear what he has to say.
Dave, TDRSM is the last in a series of satellites, but before we talk about that, can we talk a little bit about what TDRSM actually is for the system?
Sure. So TDRSM, as I think you're aware, is a communications satellite, and it basically is part of the critical lifeline for end-to-end space communications, part of NASA's portfolio that provides service to our orbiting astronauts on the space station, as well as provides a means for scientific missions to relay their science data for discovery to missions here on Earth for scientists to use, analyze, and put together. The Hubble Space Telescope being one prime example of a mission here at Goddard that uses TDRS. So the M mission itself is to provide one additional spacecraft of a constellation to continue serving in that purpose for the operations element of TDRS, which is the space network.
Because this is a series of satellites, is this a redundancy, or does it actually bring added benefit to the overall system?
I wouldn't characterize it as redundancy. What I would characterize it as is continuation. The program was even developed to basically provide replenishment satellites to continue the operations of the existing fleet. The spacecraft have limited lifetimes, although they've exceeded their design lifetimes by far. But they do have a finite life, and we have ended up needing to deorbit at least 2 spacecraft currently. But as the spacecraft age, there's a need for users to continue receiving science and for the astronauts to continue to provide voice and data back to Earth. And so these spacecraft basically allow the network and the constellation to continue providing that service.
TDRSM will continue this current system's life for how long?
So each spacecraft has an approximate life, or at least on paper, of 15 years. So into the mid-2020s is what the current projections are. That is subject to change, and it gets evaluated and updated on a yearly basis based on any failures and experiences that we're seeing in terms of performance of the existing fleet.
So how does that work for a mission now? What kind of communication systems do they use to be part of this network?
Typically, a spacecraft will have a transponder where it needs to kind of relay or provide either direct to ground, which it can be done using the near-Earth network today, where it will relay its data that it collects on board as a result of collecting science from whatever sources that it is, whether it's a sun-observing mission or something else. It needs to find a way to get that data off the spacecraft down to the users here on Earth. It can go direct-to-ground antenna, or in the case of TDRS, a lot of them will uplink their data from a transponder that they fly on their spacecraft to the TDRS, and then it can basically be provided through TDRS as a relay down to the ground. On the other side, it may be that the controllers on the ground want to command their satellite and to tell it to change its orbit or to change the science that it's looking to get, and they can send commands through TDRS in the other direction. TDRS will then relay those commands to their mission such that their spacecraft will then operate on that data, to continue that mission.
Nice, and it's funny because we don't often think of both ways of communicating. We think we like to get the data, but that's a good point. If we need to make corrections or we need to communicate information back to the spacecraft, vital to have this kind of network.
Right. It's not a simplex, it's duplex, right? You've got it going both directions. Right. That's correct.
We'll have more from our friends at NASA Edge later in the program. For now, let's go back to the control room for an update. Mike and Josh, how are things progressing?
Hi, Tori. Things continue to progress toward launch from Space Launch Complex 41 with the Atlas V rocket with TDRS.
And we're standing by to enter our planned hold, our final planned hold for today. It's a 15-minute hold at the T-minus 4-minute mark. We're about a minute 20 seconds away from that. All the operations today have been following the timeline. As you see, the Atlas V rocket stands on the launch pad at Space Launch Complex 41 on Cape Canaveral Air Force Station, venting liquid oxygen from the Centaur upper stage and the Atlas booster. The rocket is in the final stages of being fueled. Final fueling pressure reached just about this time per the countdown. Weather continues to be 90% favorable, as you heard from 45th Space Wing Launch Weather Officer Clay Flynn. The only concern would be for thick clouds, but there's nothing visible at this time that is going to indicate that we have weather to worry about. Sunshine playing on the crowds gathered at Kennedy Space Center and the surrounding areas for launch today. Everything continues to be go at this point. 15 seconds away from our final hold of the day at T-minus 4 minutes.
Condition is improving.
Standing by for the final hold.
Going in the right direction.
In 3, 2, 1.
But we're still not in yet. Roger.
T-minus 4 minutes and holding. This is a programmed 15-minute hold.
And we're at T-minus 4 and holding.
This planned 15-minute hold allows launch conductor Ed Kidda and the team to conduct final systems checks and resolve any outstanding issues prior to entering the terminal count. Up to this point, all operations have been proceeding per the timeline. RP-1 fuel was loaded aboard the Atlas booster on Wednesday.
Centaur liquid oxygen tanking began just before 6 a.m. Eastern.
Atlas liquid oxygen tanking began about 6:18 a.m.
Centaur engine chill down and Centaur liquid hydrogen tanking began at 6:38 a.m.
Flight control preparations began at 6:53 a.m.
The flight termination system test was conducted at 7:08 a.m.
The fuel fill sequence began at 7:32 a.m. when engineers opened the RD-180 fuel inlet valve to allow RP-1 fuel to wet the engine. It's sort of like priming the pump prior to launch.
45th Weather Squadron Launch Weather Officer updated the launch team with his 90% go forecast at 7:33 a.m.
Upcoming milestones include NASA Spacecraft Mission Director Dave Littman conducting his terminal count readiness poll for TDRS-M at 7:47 a.m.
United Launch Alliance launch conductor Ed Kidda will ask NASA spacecraft coordinator Christy Lawrence to transition TDRS-M to internal power at 7:48 a.m.
And we'll keep you posted as things continue to progress throughout the countdown. Everything continues to be go at this point. And with that, we're launch minus 17 minutes, 15 seconds remaining in the T-minus 4 minute hold. And we'll send things back to you, Tori.
Thanks, Mike. TDRS-M is the last in a series of 3 third-generation satellites that are designed to extend the overall life of the TDRS network, enabling critical space communications for years to come. TDRS-K launched in 2013, followed by TDRS-L in 2014, now referred to as TDRS-11 and 12. The TDRS-M spacecraft has a high-performance solar panel designed for more spacecraft power to meet growing communication requirements. TDRS-M is a replenishment satellite intended to replace older satellites when they can no longer provide operational services and are retired. Once TDRS-M is in orbit, it will go through a testing and calibration period, and after that testing period is complete, TDRS-M will become TDRS-13. At that time, a decision will be made to place TDRS-13 into service or storage, depending on the needs of NASA's space network. It is NASA's goal to always have at least one TDRS satellite in on-orbit storage as a spare. So once TDRS-M is operational, the spacecraft will be operated from the TDRS ground terminals at White Sands Complex in New Mexico. NASA Goddard Space Flight Center in Greenbelt, Maryland is responsible for designing, building, integrating, and testing TDRS-M. NASA contracted with Boeing Space Systems for all 3 of the third-generation tracking and data relay satellites, which were manufactured at its factory in El Segundo, California. NASA's Space Communications and Navigation Program, part of the Human Exploration and Operations Mission Directorate at NASA headquarters in Washington, is responsible for the TDRS network. Launch management of the Atlas V launch service for TDRS-M is the responsibility of the Launch Services Program at Kennedy, also known as LSP. The LSP team also manages the overall launch effort. That includes overseeing and development of the integration of the rocket with the spacecraft. Let's now take a look at the TDRS-M mission once the spacecraft reaches geosynchronous orbit.
"30 years ago, NASA launched into a new era of high-bandwidth continuous space communication with the Tracking and Data Relay Satellite, TDRS. Today, NASA is continuing this legacy by launching the next generation of satellites.
10, 9,
At
8,
Cape Canaveral,
7,
the TDRS spacecraft
6,
sits atop an
5,
Atlas V rocket,
4,
ready for launch.
3, 2, 1, and liftoff. The Atlas V rocket preparing the next generation of tracking and data relay satellites.
After a 4-minute burn, the Atlas V main engine separates from the Centaur engine and drops back to Earth. Shortly after separation of the main engine, the protective shield that covers the payload, called the fairing, separates to reveal the TDRS spacecraft. After boosting the spacecraft to geosynchronous transfer orbit, the TDRS spacecraft separates from the Centaur engine. Shortly after this separation, the two folded single-axis antenna reflectors are released to take their natural parabolic shape. With a series of engine firings, the TDRS onboard rocket guides the spacecraft to its final location in geosynchronous orbit. Once arriving at this orbit, the spacecraft starts its deployment sequence by unfolding the first solar array. Next, the two single-axis antennas are deployed and locked into position. These antennas are designed to track and communicate with low Earth orbit satellites. After the single-axis antennas are secured into place, the second solar array starts to unfold, and the SGL and Omni antennas are deployed. Once TDRS completes this deployment sequence, it's now ready for testing and calibration before being placed into service. With this addition of TDRS-M, NASA has assured the future of continuous space-to-ground communication.
We would like to welcome those of you just joining us on Facebook Live. Here at NASA Kennedy Space Center in Florida, the Atlas V rocket and TDRS-M spacecraft are poised to lift off for a launch time of 8:03 a.m. Eastern from Space Launch Complex 41 at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. The first TDRS satellite launched in April 1983 aboard Space Shuttle Challenger. The TDRS-M spacecraft will weigh approximately 7,615 pounds at liftoff. TDRS-M will eventually become TDRS-13, extending space communication well into the 2020s. This is the third TDRS mission for United Launch Alliance. This will be the 72nd launch for ULA on an Atlas V rocket, which, by the way, has 100% mission success to date. The vehicle's height with the extended payload fairing is approximately 191 feet, which is about 19 stories tall. We are now about 4 minutes away from liftoff and closing in on the final activities leading to the scheduled liftoff at 8:03 a.m. Eastern. For now, I'll hand you off to Josh and Mike over at the Atlas Launch Control, so they'll take us through the liftoff and main engine cutoff. Josh and Mike.
Thank you, Tori, and welcome to those who are just joining us on Facebook Live. Mike and I are here in the Atlas Space Flight Operations Center, also called the ASOC, where launch teams continue to move through the necessary steps to bring us toward liftoff, currently scheduled at 8:03 a.m. from Space Launch Complex 41 here at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station in Florida. We do have a 40-minute window for this launch should launch teams need more time, but the weather continues to be favorable. Launch weather officer gave us a 90% go, so that means only a 10% probability of violation. And Mike, we've got a lot of steps that are coming up. What can we expect?
Well, a number of polls have been occurring at this time. Various disciplines here inside the Atlas Space Flight Operations Center, in the Mission Director Center, and the Launch Control Center, where all of the action is occurring today. NASA Launch Manager Tim Dunn just completed a poll a few moments ago where he talked with the NASA team, and he informed the team that we have a go range, we have go weather forecast, not working any major technical issues, and we are proceeding on with the count. The TDRS spacecraft poll has been conducted, and in a few moments, launch conductor Ed Kitta will poll the team for the final go to pick up the countdown. The launch team, managed by NASA launch manager Tim Dunn and United Launch Alliance Atlas launch director Bill Cullen, and launch conductor Ed Kitta, comprises a number of team members throughout the United States, frankly, and mainly gathered here at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station Space Launch Complex 41 today for launch. During launch conductor Ed Kitta's poll, 27 engineers and managers will be polled for system status and readiness to proceed with the launch.
This is the final status check before launch of all Atlas vehicle systems, ground systems, the TDRS-M spacecraft, and the U.S. Air Force Eastern Range.
We're standing by in about a minute and a half for that poll. Everything continues to go well. Per the timeline, all the activities have been occurring today. RP-1 fuel was loaded aboard the Atlas booster on Wednesday. The Atlas Centaur configuration uses the rocket-grade kerosene RP-1 for the fuel on the booster stage combined with liquid oxygen. And on the Centaur upper stage, it's similar to what the space shuttle used to use. The fuel is liquid hydrogen, the oxidizer liquid oxygen, and together these venerable pair of rockets have sent a number of spacecraft into space, and we stand by again for successful launch today with no technical issues being worked. We're at launch minus 8 minutes. We remain in our 15-minute T-minus 4-minute hold. We'll be counting you down to coming out of that hold shortly. Crowds are gathered today to watch the launch across the Space Coast, along the beaches here in Central Florida, and the launch gantry at Kennedy Space Center. T-minus 7 minutes, 26 seconds and counting. The Atlas V rocket poised for liftoff at 8:03 a.m. Eastern Time. Launch conductor Ed Kitta will be conducting his final poll of the team.
Go ahead.
At launch minus 7 minutes, about 10 seconds from now. So let's listen in as launch conductor Ed Kitta performs the final polling of the team.
Poll and push the clock 5 minutes until we have a better prediction of our thermal conditioning. LC copies. Timer LC.
The timer.
Do not release the hold.
Roger.
LC switch not ready.
So we're going to remain in the T-minus 4-minute hold for a little bit longer. Teams are evaluating a thermal issue with the temperature on the Centaur upper stage. They want to take some additional time to evaluate the issue.
For the TRD.
And we'll stand by for more details.
Looks like we're leveling off there. We have made some gain, but I think we need to discuss increasing that pressure some more. Roger. ACLC?
ACM1?
Yes, at this time, with the pressure of the engine chill down not meeting requirements for engine chill temperature, please convene the anomaly team and provide a recommendation.
As you heard, a standard operating procedure whenever there's a technical issue, an anomaly team is convened here inside the Mission Directors Center in the Spaceflight Operations Center, the Atlas Spaceflight Operations Center at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. Chill down temperature for the Centaur is not at its desired point at this point in the countdown, and teams of engineers and managers will discuss the issue and determine whether or not it is anything that we will need to be concerned about today. We do have a 40-minute launch window today that expires at 8:43 a.m. Eastern Time. Our planned liftoff was 8:03 a.m., and at this time we have extended our hold an additional 5 minutes. So we have not come out of the T-minus 4-minute hold, and we will evaluate this technical issue. This is Atlas Launch Control. Once again, we remain in our T-minus 4-minute hold. The hold has been extended for 5 additional minutes to enable teams of engineers and managers to discuss a technical issue with the Centaur upper stage. A new launch time will be assigned once the discussion is over. Again, we have a 40-minute launch window today, and we can launch as late as 8:43 a.m. Eastern Time. This is Atlas Launch Control. We're in our T-minus 4-minute hold and extended hold. NASA Launch Manager Tim Dunn, together with Atlas Launch Director Bill Cullen, and the teams are evaluating where to go and at what point to pick up the count. There was an issue, a thermal issue with a Centaur liquid oxygen chill down system. Conditions seem to be trending in the right direction, and the team is evaluating at what point we may pick up the count. We have until 8:43 a.m. Eastern Time for a launch today. This is Atlas Launch Control. Whenever we get into one of these situations where a technical issue is being discussed with the anomaly team and managers and engineers, and when there's a launch window, the launch time is extended in 5-minute increments. Initially, we extended the hold by 5 minutes from 8:03 a.m. to 8:08 a.m. And now the time has been extended to 8:13 a.m. for the earliest possible liftoff, as teams continue to work through this technical issue. This is Atlas Launch Control for those of you just joining us and expecting a launch at this time of the Atlas V rocket carrying the TDRS-M spacecraft. Teams here at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station in the Atlas Spaceflight Operations Center are evaluating an issue with the chill down system on the Centaur upper stage. There's a thermal issue that has not trended or has not shown and displayed the correct values at the time expected. However, it is trending in the right direction, and launch managers are continuing in our hold to evaluate the situation and picking predicted launch times in 5-minute increments. At this point, we expect that we would launch no earlier than 8:13 a.m. Eastern Time. This is Atlas Launch Control, standing by while teams of engineers and managers evaluate a technical issue that's being worked with the liquid oxygen chill-down system of the Centaur upper stage. Things are trending in the right direction, and managers are coordinating with the TDRS managers, along with the United Launch Alliance launch team headed by Launch Director Bill Cullen, to pick a new T0 time. At this time, the clocks inside the Mission Director Center and the Launch Control Center have advanced to T0 time of no earlier than 8:18 a.m. as teams continue to coordinate precise liftoff time. This is Atlas Launch Control as teams continue to evaluate the technical issue this morning at Space Launch Complex 41. Things continue to trend in the right direction, while we at this point are expecting a liftoff of no earlier than 8:18 a.m. Eastern Time. Managers and engineers continue to evaluate the liquid oxygen chill-down system and expect that it may take a little bit longer than that in order to come within limits. Once again, though, we do have a 40-minute launch window today that extends to 8:43 a.m. Eastern Time. This is Atlas Launch Control. We remain in our T-minus 4-minute hold beyond our predicted launch time today as teams continue to evaluate a technical issue with the liquid oxygen chill-down system for the Centaur upper stage. Again, the issue continues to be trending in the right direction. The thermal issue is working its way through. And managers fully expect that within today's launch window, which expires at 8:43 a.m., that we'll be able to clear the issue and launch today and take the TDRS-M spacecraft to orbit. At this time, though, as we continue to advance the hold in 5-minute increments, our no earlier than launch time is 8:23 a.m. Eastern Time. This is Atlas Launch Control.
For the team on Net 1, this is the LC. While we work through our issues with center engine chill, maintain system readiness to pick up with the L7 status check once we do meet the chill down requirement.
This is Atlas Launch Control. You heard Launch Conductor Ed Kidda briefing his team to stand by for their launch minus 7-minute poll within the T-minus 4-minute hold once this issue is cleared in order to achieve liftoff today. Managers and engineers continue to work through the issue. Again, at this point, we're expecting a launch of the Atlas V rocket within the launch window, which expires at 8:43 a.m. Our no earlier than launch time at this time is 8:23 a.m. Eastern Time. This is Atlas Launch Control at T-minus 4 minutes and holding. Recapping where we are today, the Atlas V rocket stands ready for launch. The predicted time originally was 8:03 a.m. with a 40-minute launch window that extends to 8:43 a.m. The Atlas booster and Centaur upper stages are both fully fueled and ready for launch today. Teams encountered a slight thermal issue with the chill down of the liquid oxygen aboard the Centaur upper stage. Thermal conditions were not within limits at the predicted time and have taken a little bit longer than expected in order to get there. So there is optimism that the system will work itself into the proper configuration within today's launch window, and we continue to take measured steps of 5 minutes, extending the hold while engineers monitor the situation and managers confer with each other from the Atlas system, the launch control team, and the TDRS spacecraft in order to settle on a final T0 time. As of now, the predicted liftoff time is no earlier than 8:28 a.m. Eastern Time. This is Atlas Launch Control.
LCLD, Channel 1.
Go ahead.
Please coordinate a new T0 of 1229 Zulu.
Roger. RCLC.
RC.
Please coordinate a new T0 with the range of 1229Z.
I copy 1229Z.
Timer LC.
This timer.
Please set the clock to the new T0 of 1229Z.
Roger.
Launch conductor Ed Kidda coordinating with range coordinator Dylan Rice to establish a new liftoff time today for the TDRS M launch of 8:29 a.m. Eastern Time. A little less than 10 minutes from now. A little bit more than 10 minutes from now. So teams of engineers here in the Spaceflight Operations Center and the Mission Director Center will repoll, evaluate their systems, and be ready for a new liftoff time of 8:29 a.m.
Centaur lead, LC Net 1.
This is Atlas Launch Control. Eager space fans awaiting today's launch at Kennedy Space Center. Every launch draws a crowd. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to watch a rocket launch to space. These folks are standing by for the liftoff now planned for 8:29 a.m. Eastern Time of the Atlas V rocket carrying the TDRS M spacecraft to orbit.
LC, red line monitor.
LCRC1.
Go ahead.
New T0 1229 Zulu has been approved by the range.
Roger.
LC, red line monitor.
Go ahead.
I can verify that both of the measurements are now in band and more than one toggle above the limit violation.
Roger, so you can give me step 950?
Correct.
The technical issue has worked its way through. All systems are go.
Okay, radar, brief the...
We are 8 minutes, 19 seconds away from the planned liftoff today.
NLM?
NLM.
Proceed, AC.
Okay, as just reported, we are now within the required band after the couple of adjustments of the chill down pressure. We recommend proceeding.
LC copies and concurs. LD?
LD concurs.
NLM?
NLM concurs.
NASA Launch Manager Tim Dunn,
Team on Net 1.
standing to the left of the screen,
Status check.
concurs, and the team will continue on with the count. We're about 45 seconds away from launch conductor Ed Kidda performing his final polling of the team for a predicted launch today of 8:29 a.m.
All steps are complete prior to the status check.
Standing by for launch conductor Ed Kidda's poll, the launch minus 7-minute poll that will take us out of our T-minus 4-minute hold.
Status check to proceed with terminal count. Atlas systems, propulsion. Go. Hydraulics. Go. Pneumatics. Go. LO2.
Go.
Water.
Go.
Centaur systems, propulsion.
Go.
Pneumatics.
Go.
LO2.
Go.
LH2.
Go.
Has gas.
Go.
Electrical systems, airborne.
Go.
Ground.
Go.
Facility.
Go.
RFFTS.
Go.
Flight control.
Go.
GC cube.
Go.
Com.
Go.
Timer.
Go.
Umbilicals.
Go.
ECS.
Go.
Redline monitor.
Go.
Quality.
Go.
Op safety manager.
Go.
ULA safety officer.
Go.
Vehicle system engineer.
Go.
Anomaly chief.
AC is go.
Range coordinator.
Clear to proceed.
Launch director.
LD is go, and you have permission to launch.
Proceed with the count. Timer set count to start at 12:25 Zulu for a plan T0 of 12:29 Zulu.
Roger. Count will start at 12:25 Zulu for a planned T0 of 12:29 Zulu.
As you've just heard, polling is complete and the team has been given a go for launch. The countdown will resume here shortly.
Coming up to 5.5 minutes away from launch. At launch minus 5 minutes, launch conductor Ed Kidda will ask NASA spacecraft coordinator Christy Lawrence to verify the TDRS-M is on internal power.
TDRS-M spacecraft mission director Dave Littman will verify the spacecraft is on internal power at launch minus 5 minutes.
And we're 5 minutes away from launch, about 1 minute away from coming out of the hold. Atlas liquid oxygen, Centaur liquid oxygen, and Centaur liquid hydrogen are verified to be at flight level.
30 seconds before releasing the T-minus 4-minute hold, NASA launch manager Tim Dunn will poll managers for a go, no-go for launch.
And from T-minus 4 minutes until launch, you'll be listening to launch conductor Ed Kidda and his team performing the final steps in the countdown procedure.
You'll hear the team confirm securing of Atlas liquid oxygen, topping followed by the call to transfer the Atlas and Centaur stages from ground facility power to internal battery power.
And we're standing by to come out of our hold in 10 seconds.
Three, two, one, mark.
We are at T-minus 4 minutes and counting.
T-minus 3 minutes, 55 seconds.
Ground pyros enabled.
Flight control officer verifies ground pyrotechnics for release of the Atlas at T0 have been enabled. T-minus 3 minutes, 35 seconds and counting. T-minus 3 minutes, 15 seconds and counting. At T-minus 3 minutes, topping of liquid oxygen will be secured and the Atlas tanks will be at flight pressure.
T-minus 3 minutes. T-minus 2 minutes, 50 seconds.
FCS internal.
And the flight termination system is now internal.
Atlas tanks at flight pressure.
T-minus 2 minutes, 32 seconds and counting. Atlas rocket fully fueled, ready to go. Weather is go. Headed for liftoff at 8:29 a.m.
1 minute, 59.
Vehicle internal.
1:55.
Launch securing Centaur LH2.
150.
Securing Centaur LO2.
The Atlas and Centaur has power is now internal.
140.
Launch enabled.
137.
FCS armed.
Flight termination system has been armed. T-minus 1 minute, 30 seconds and counting.
One minute, 20 seconds.
OCUs armed.
SCS count started.
115. 110.
Vent valves locked.
Centaur liquid oxygen and hydrogen vent valves closed for flight.
T-minus 1 minute.
Rock, report range status.
Range green.
Launch conductor Ed Kidda, status is the eastern range.
And the range is go. Under a minute away from launch.
T-minus 40 seconds.
The Centaur tanks will reach flight pressure at T-minus 30.
T-minus 28. 25.
Status check.
Go Atlas.
Go Centaur. Go Teacher Sim.
All systems are go. T-minus 15 seconds and counting.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And we have liftoff of TDRS M on the Atlas V rocket from Space Launch Complex 41. TDRS M, securing space-to-ground communication for NASA's low Earth orbit operations, including the International Space Station.
Should yaw maneuver to steer to its planned path at an inclination of 26.2 degrees. You're hearing the voice of Patrick Moore providing launch vehicle ascent data. Patrick is the United Launch Alliance Denver Network Operations Center Command Control Center.
Pump speeds and injector pressures all looking good. Now
Reading the
passing
data coming
45
directly
seconds
from the
into
rocket.
flight.
The Atlas rocket carrying TDRS M
nominal
will
flight
reach
control
supersonic speed at 1 minute and 20 seconds into flight.
Now passing 1 minute into flight. Vehicle is now 3 miles in altitude and traveling at 1,100 miles per hour.
Standing by for max Q.
Now passing 1 minute 15 seconds into flight.
32 seconds into flight.
Mach 1, Atlas V is now supersonic. One minute, 30 seconds into flight. Now passing through max Q, maximum dynamic pressure.
This is the point when mechanical stress on the rocket reaches its peak because of the rocket's velocity and resistance created by the
The
atmosphere.
RD-180 is throttled down to 95% thrust as expected. Engine response looks good. This engine thrust profile will continue until the vehicle reaches a programmed 5G acceleration limit.
About 2 minutes into the flight
And
of
now
Atlas.
passing 2 minutes into flight, approximately 2 minutes remaining in the first stage of flight. Vehicle trajectory traveling right down the middle of the range track, looking good. RD-180 engine operating parameters also looking good.
Booster engine cutoff slated for 4 minutes 2 seconds after launch.
The Atlas V rocket now weighs just 1/2 of what it did at launch, burning propellant at a rate of almost 2,600 pounds per second. And vehicle has gone to closed loop guidance. Now passing 2 minutes 30 seconds into flight. And RCS pyro valve has been fired. Centaur reaction control system now pressurizing the flight levels. Atlas V is now 30 miles in altitude, 43 miles downrange distance, traveling at 4,700 miles per hour. And now passing 3 minutes into flight, approximately 1 minute remaining until booster engine cutoff. RD-180 continues to perform well. Vehicle trajectory continuing down the middle of the range track.
ULA's Patrick Moore providing vehicle ascent data. 3 minutes 20 seconds into flight.
Now passing 3 minutes 30 seconds into flight. Mach 10. And vehicle has reached the 5G throttle limit. And we've begun boost phase chill down.
Less than 30 seconds away from booster engine cutoff.
3 minutes 50 seconds into flight, standing by for BECO momentarily.
6 seconds after BECO, the Centaur second stage will separate from the Atlas booster.
And we have BECO, booster engine cutoff, standing by for stage SEP.
10 seconds after separation.
And we have good indication of stage separation.
The Centaur single RLC engine ignites for the first time.
We have ignition and full thrust on the RL-10.
The RL-10 produces 22,900 pounds of thrust and burns for just under 8 minutes.
And we have good indication of fairing separation. This is the first of 2 planned burns for today's mission. This first burn should last approximately 13 minutes and 40 seconds.
The payload fairing protecting TDRS-M during its flight through the atmosphere
and
has
RL-10
been jettisoned.
engine operating parameters all looking good. Vehicle trajectory continuing down the middle of the range track. The Centaur is now 107 miles in altitude, 350 miles downrange distance, traveling at 11,160 miles per hour. And the reaction control system has begun periodic firings to maintain thermal conditioning as expected. The Centaur propellant utilization system has gone to closed loop control. Now passing 5 minutes, 30 seconds into flight. Initial look at booster performance shows a near nominal performance. Data quality continuing to look good from this initial phase of flight. Now passing 6 minutes into flight. The Centaur is now 145 miles in altitude, 560 miles downrange distance, traveling at 11,500 miles per hour. Now passing 6 minutes, 30 seconds into flight, RL-10 continuing to perform well. Chamber pressures and pump pressures all looking good.
About 11 minutes remaining in the Centaur burn prior to MECO 1.
And vehicle body rates all remaining very stable for this first Centaur burn. And the periodic RCS firings for thermal conditioning have warmed up the RCS lines to near bottle temperatures. And engine pressure is all continuing to remain very stable, looking good. Centaur is now 173 miles in altitude, 815 miles downrange distance, traveling at 12,000 miles per hour.
Eight minutes into the flight of TDRS-M. Centaur upper stage continuing with its burn.
And the RL-10 is operating as expected now, making slight modifications to the propellant utilization. Now passing 8 minutes, 30 seconds into flight, RL-10 continuing to perform very well. Vehicle trajectory continuing down the middle of the range track. Centaur is now 187 miles in altitude, 1,080 miles downrange distance, traveling at 12,800 miles per hour.
Computer graphics showing the TDRS-M spacecraft atop the Centaur upper stage. Everything continues to go well. 9 minutes, 22 seconds into flight. Here inside the Atlas Spaceflight Operations Center, the Mission Director Center, mission managers watching the progress of the liftoff today.
And RL-10 continuing to perform well. Centaur PU requesting a near nominal mixture ratio.
This is the Launch Control Center inside the Spaceflight Operations Center. The team of launch engineers that successfully saw to the liftoff of Atlas and Centaur.
Now passing
today.
10 minutes into flight. Centaur is now 190 miles in altitude, 1,360 miles downrange distance, traveling at 13,700 miles per hour. And vehicle trajectory continuing down the middle of the range track. RCS activity is as expected, continuing with periodic firings to maintain thermal conditioning of the system.
Just about 7 minutes remaining in the Centaur first burn today, taking the TDRS spacecraft to its initial point in space.
And now passing 11 minutes, 30 seconds into flight, RL-10 continues to perform very well. Chamber pressure is remaining stable, looking good within expected ranges. Propellant utilization system continuing to request a near nominal mixture ratio, and RCS firings continuing periodically as planned to maintain thermal conditioning. And the Centaur is now 178 miles in altitude, 1,790 miles downrange distance, traveling at 15,200 miles per hour.
Patrick Moore from United Launch Alliance providing vehicle ascent commentary for us.
And we are just about 5 minutes away from second
Now
stage
passing
Centaur
13
engine.
minutes into flight. Approximately 5 minutes remaining in this first Centaur burn.
About 5 minutes away from the second stage main engine cutoff. After that, there will be a long coast phase which will last approximately 90 minutes before spacecraft separation.
Now passing 13 minutes, 50 seconds into flight. Centaur is now 153 miles in altitude, 2,290 miles downrange distance, traveling at 17,000 miles per hour. And approximately 4 minutes remaining in this first Centaur burn. RL-10 continues to perform very well. Engine pressures all remaining stable. Centaur propellant utilization system continuing to actively control. And RCS periodic firings continuing on as planned. Body rates and pitch on roll all remaining very stable, near zero.
Just about 3 minutes remaining in this Centaur burn.
Now passing 15 minutes into flight, approximately 3 minutes remaining to a nominal MECO. And now passing 15 minutes, 25 seconds into flight. Centaur is now 130 miles in altitude, 2,730 miles downrange distance, traveling at 18,800 miles per hour. And now passing 16 minutes into flight, approximately 2 minutes remaining to a nominal MECO. And Centaur engine operating parameters continue to look good. RCS system continuing to perform well. Periodic firings for thermal conditioning are continuing as planned. And the reaction control system lines are very close to bottle temperature, as expected.
Just about 1 minute left in this burn of the Centaur engine.
Now passing 17 minutes into flight. Less than 1 minute remaining to a nominal MECO time. Centaur is now 3,250 miles downrange distance, traveling at just over 21,000 miles per hour. And launch vehicle is now orbital. Now passing 17 minutes, 30 seconds into flight. Standing by for MECO 1 momentarily. And we have cut off. And we have engaged the 4S settling on the thrusters. Body rates remaining stable after shutdown. Actual MECO time occurring very close to predicted MECO time, as expected.
With main engine cutoff of the second stage Centaur, another burn will follow after an hour and a half after the coast period. This burn is scheduled for 1 hour and 48 minutes and 4 seconds mission elapsed time, or 10:47 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. With main engine cutoff, we've now entered the long coast phase. Launch today of the Atlas V from Space Launch Complex 41 at Cape Canaveral happened at 8:29. And with that, we'll go back to Tori McClendon.
Thanks, Josh. So as you just heard, we entered into a long coast phase that will last approximately 90 minutes before spacecraft separation. We will continue with a live coverage for the final part of this mission, beginning at 9:45 a.m. Eastern. In the meantime, we'll leave you with launch replays.
Nine, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2,